off. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
TTMTrades, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the S&P 500 and the VIX, and more in particular the ETF SPY SPY. All right. So first we're just going to talk about the VIX. All right. What is the VIX? The Volatility Index. I even put up a couple definitions for you real quick. VIX created by the Chicago Board Options Exchange. The Volatility Index of VIX is a real-time market index that represents the market expectation of a 30-day forward-looking volatility. Volatility, also known as risk, derived from the price inputs of the S&P 500 index options. It provides a measure of market risk and investor sentiment. Let's go down to this one. The so-called VIX is a measure of the stock market's 30-day expected volatility, computed from the market prices of the call and put options on the S&P 500. When the market goes down, investors will want to purchase insurance, which drives up the VIX prices of put options and increases the VIX. All right, so looking at the VIX on the day-to-day chart, when that downtrend started, that's the weekly. When that downtrend started back in late February, you can see the VIX spiking very high. A lot of put options, so on and so forth. And here recently, you can see the VIX has been pulling back as the overall sentiment of the market has been somewhat mildly bullish. Okay. But just looking at the overall VIX setup, the overall VIX setup is still very bullish. All right, it's still above its long-term average, the green line, and it just crossed below its short-term average. But the VIX isn't like the PMO isn't free falling. Okay, it's kind of moving down slowly, but it's still above its long-term average and above the zero line in positive territory. So just the overall setup of the VIX is very bullish. Now, I said in one of my videos, if we zoom into the 2-hour chart, probably 2 videos ago, I said the overall sentiment of the SPY is going to be bullish. All right. And I said until I see the VIX, I think it was back early April when the VIX was still trending down like this, showing that the overall sentiment in the market changed. I said as long as the VIX is trending downward like this, I will stay bullish on the market. Now, I said if we get towards the zero line and the VIX begins to flatten out as we're seeing here and starts to cross back above its averages, then that lets me know that the market sentiment may be somewhat changing in the overall market, and it may be a good time to adjust to possibly take puts on the SPY. All right. But looking at this, the VIX still has a little work to go because it's still below the zero line and it still has to get above its long-term average. So I'm looking at about another week of consolidation to see if the VIX can overall set up and begin trending back upwards to show that put options are coming back into the market heavily, right? But looking at the overall setup, I mean, if you look, as far as the RSI has been below its averages this entire time. Every time it did spike up or it wouldn't hold above its averages. Ever since it started that downtrend, you can see it's below its green and yellow line, struggling to get above and hold. But finally, it broke above this time, found support, made a higher high, pulled back, and it found support right here as it's starting to curl and hold above it. Same thing with the Shanghai trend meter. It's been trending below its averages this entire time, showing that sentiment in the overall market has been mildly bullish. This is why the VIX is falling, because more call options are in the market. And now you get this recent spike above its averages, and now it's flattening out to hold above its averages. So right now the VIX short-term downtrend that it was in on the 2-hour chart, that downtrend is beginning to consolidate. All right. And it could be showing that the overall market sentiment is beginning to shift from bullishness to bearishness, mild bearishness. I'm not going to say we're going to go into a strong downtrend, but the sentiment could be shifting. All right. 30-minute chart, as you can see here, which has been below its 150 period SMA in the PMO in negative territory, has now finally broke above its 150 SMA and is now consolidating right around that area, also creating a higher high. And as you can see here, the PMO has been diverging amongst the price action, creating higher highs and higher lows, and now it's above both its short-term and long-term averages, which could possibly be breaking out here to create another higher high. All right. And if that continues, then that shows that the market sentiment is shifting into the overall market. And you can see that put options are becoming more and more in the overall market, and the sentiment is beginning to shift. Now, again, I'm not saying we're going to go into this overall crazy downtrend all over again and start creating lower lows. But what I am saying, what I do see on the horizon with the S&P 500 or the ETF SPY, I do see a pullback here happening soon. And if you look at my last video, I talked about that. I said the SPY is going to pull back to 260 before it pushes 300. All right. And I think that's what we're possibly maybe seeing here. The daily is still set up pretty bullishness on a short-term basis. Okay, again, I use the RSI for short-term trends and short-term trades if I want to get in and out of trades. But you can see the RSI is holding here pretty well above both its averages as far as the short-term and long-term average. Okay, one thing to pay attention to is any stock that is in a strong downtrend will always struggle to get above 60 on the RSI. That 60 to 50 range acts like a resistance anytime a stock, ETF, or whatever is trying to get back into a strong uptrend, and or it's in a strong downtrend and it's unable to get back in a strong uptrend, right? That 50 to 60 area will act as resistance on the RSI, right? So as you can see here, went on that strong downtrend. The RSI is beginning to trend back up, but it's pushing back into that 50 to 60 area, and we kind of need to see it break out above 60 and then pull back and hold support in that 40 to 50 area. Because again, anytime a stock is in a strong uptrend, that 40 to 50 area will hold very strongly on the RSI. As you can see here, if we switch it downward, that 40 to 50 area as it pulls back will hold very well as it trends up. Okay, so vice versa on the other end. That's just on a day-to-day basis. Still has a mildly bullish setup. As far as setups of what I look at, is still in a weak downtrend. Okay, it wasn't a strong downtrend. Strong downtrend being that it's below its middle Bollinger Band and it's below its 150 SMA, which is the higher time frames middle BB. But as you can see here, it's gotten back above that middle Bollinger Band, and it has not yet crossed back above its long-term average, which is the higher time frames middle BB sitting at 300. If you look at the SPY middle BB weekly chart, sitting at 300. All right, i.e. the 150 SMA sitting at 300. So it still hasn't gotten back above that, right? So the SPY is in a weak downtrend. Okay, it's still categorized as a downtrend, but it's in a weak downtrend because it's consolidating right now. Okay. If you look at the daily, right, even on the PMO, anytime a stock is in a very strong uptrend, it'll hold above that zero line on the PMO. All right, so if you look here at PMO, zero line, price action the entire time. Every time the PMO crossed back to show some consolidation on the higher time frame, like the weekly, as you can see here, it held above that weekly middle Bollinger Band, but it pulled back to consolidate on it before it trended back upwards. The PMO would always hold above that zero line, as you can see here, and then cross back over, hold above the zero line, cross back over, above the zero line, cross back over, holding above its averages to show how strong that trend is. Now that PMO has broken below that zero line after so long, and as you can see here, it's still below that zero line. Okay, and it hasn't crossed back above the zero line to show that bullishness. Okay, so some things you want to keep in mind. Yes, the medium term sentiment is bullish right now, but we have not gotten back into a strong setup on a day-to-day basis as far as getting back in some type of strong uptrend or anything like that. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind. Now the SPY did break out of this downtrend. As you can see here, it's below its bottom two middle BBs, not middle BBs, bottom two Bollinger Bands. But as it finally broke above that bottom one standard deviation, pulled back to found support, broke above its middle Bollinger Band, and now as you can see here, it's holding right in this general area. Now, looking at that, that looks very bullish, and like we'll continue up into the 300 area, which is a very strong possibility. But now if we zoom in on the weekly chart, you can begin seeing some weakness in this uptrend right here, which tells me we may get a minor pullback here on the horizon, and that'll be to that 260 area, which I believe, which was the last high right here, as it was creating a higher high, higher low, higher high. I believe we're going to pull back and find that 260 area support before possibly breaking back out to make another higher high into the 300 area. But right now in the intermediate, I think we're going to have a minor pullback. If we zoom into the 2-hour chart, as you look here on the 2-hour chart for the S&P 500, when we was in that strong downtrend, You can see here the PMO the entire time was below its short-term and long-term average, and we were in negative territory as far as below zero, as you can see here, this line. All right. But each time the PMO rejected, constantly trending downward, we finally got the crossover right here, and it's been holding steady above its short-term average this entire time. Just like on the downtrend, it was holding steady below its short-term and long-term average. All right. Here on this uptrend, it's holding strong above its short-term average and long-term average to show that the trend was pretty strong. And now we're starting to see that trend kind of fade away here on the 2-hour chart. As you can see, the PMO has finally crossed over for one, as you can slightly see here, and it's falling below its short-term average. So we're seeing some short-term weakness into the market. Now, the SPY is still above its long-term average and in positive territory, okay? So the overall setup is still a good setup, but I'm seeing some minor weakness here in the short term, which will cause me to believe we're going to have that 260 pullback here pretty soon. All right. Now, if we zoom in to the 30-minute chart, you can already see the weakness, because as the price action is constantly creating higher high, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then finally it created a lower low falling below that last low. And then I said in the Discord, I believe yesterday, on this drop, I said I wanted to wait for a 280 to 281 rally before I took my entry, because that's what the 5-minute chart was showing. We had that drop here on the 5-minute chart, and then again the PMO, as you look here yesterday, it began flattening out, and it was starting to cross back above its averages, showing me that the trend was beginning to reverse. So I said I want to see a 280 to 281 rally, and we didn't get that yesterday, but we got the breakout today. And then we got that 280 to 281 rally. Now, as soon as we rallied up to 280, this is where I took my puts on SPY. All right, because I wanted us to rally back into that line of resistance sitting at 280 on the 30-minute chart, and the middle BB sitting at 280 on the 2-hour chart. Right. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see us rally back into that area and then possible failure before pulling back. All right. Now, as we rally into that area, I wanted to see the strength of the 5-minute chart PMO continue to trend upwards, right? If we were to push back into that area of resistance, and I started to see the PMO show some weakness, showing that the strength was beginning to lose momentum, then I knew that that area of resistance was going to hold. So that's what I began to see. The PMO was trending very strong, and then it kind of just flattened out going into the back end of the trading day. Converging on top of his short-term average, and then began converging on top of his long-term average on a 5-minute scale, okay, to show me that the short-term momentum was beginning to fade. So what I'm looking at tomorrow is we'll probably get a pullback to that 276 area. If that 276 doesn't hold, because that's the long-term average on the 5-minute chart, and then that 276 correlates with the middle BB here on the 30-minute chart. If we fall below that 276 area, then that'll put us back down here to the low of 274 to 271 where we had to dip at yesterday. All right. Now, if that low of 271 to 272 doesn't hold, and as you can see here, we're struggling to hold above the 150 SMA here. If the 30-minute chart falls below its 150 SMA, then that puts the 2-hour chart into a sign of weakness, which will continue the PMO's downwardness. And then we'll probably create another lower low below that 272 down to 266. Okay. Now, in order for this short-term bullishness strength to continue creating higher highs and higher lows on a daily, you want to make sure that the 2-hour chart stays above this 150 SMA. All right, because that is a short-term bullishness, was long-term bullishness on the 2-hour time frame. Okay. Same thing here. Back in late January, early February, it constantly held above its 150 SMA. Then it would have had that cross below it with the PMO going to negative territory. That's when we knew that the trend was reversing. Okay, so same thing here, still above its 150 SMA, which is bullish, but we are seeing some short-term weakness here for a possible pullback to that 266 first, which is the key area for the 2-hour chart, back down to that middle BB sitting right around 260 area. All right. But that's what I see right now in the short term for the SPY. Now, looking back at the 30-minute chart, you can already see, again, that weakness coming in. It's creating lower highs and lower lows on each rally. All right, as you can see here, that rally here was a lower high. Again, rally here, lower high. Finally pull back, and then you're getting another small short-term rally here. And then if that pulls back, that'll put the 30-minute chart PMO into negative territory to start the 30-minute chart into a downtrend back down to these lows right around that 260 area we was talking about. Okay, so that's what I see in the short term. Again, the VIX, as you can see here, is beginning to flatten out on that 2-hour chart, which shows that, you know, the put options are beginning to come back into the market, because you can see that short-term momentum beginning to fade away on the VIX and flatten out, now starting to cross back above its averages. Same thing with the price action, that short-term downtrend where the price action is below its middle BB. Finally, you get the breakout above the BB, middle BB, and now it's holding above it and trending, not trending, but holding above it and consolidating. Okay, so I would just keep an eye on the market right now for some short-term weakness and a possible pullback just from technical analysis. Okay, now if we lose that 260 area on this short-term pullback, from what I'm seeing on a short-term technical analysis basis, then that leaves 242 for the next line of support, where the price action dipped at and when it created that next lower low right here. Higher low. So we're looking for two different plays here. We're looking for a 260 pullback to create a higher low, and then for the price action to trend up to test that 300 like we talked about, and or we're looking for a 250 260 pullback with a short-term rally unable to create another higher high. And then again, if that 2-hour chart is still showing some weakness, as we just pointed out on the SPY, then you'll get a pullback here to 260 with a short-term rally back into this resistance, the top middle BB, well, the top 1 standard Bollinger Band. Get the pullback, a short-term rally, and then you'll get a fade where the price action goes back down like this, which will continue the overall bigger trend of the SPY, creating a higher high, a lower high and a lower low. Okay, you had that high here with a low of 218. Again, the market is rallying on a week-to-week basis. Again, if it cannot get back above that middle BB, as you can see here, as it was trending in an uptrend, if it can't get back above that middle BB and it fails to hold that 271, then you're possibly looking at a long-term pullback to create a lower low. Okay, but right now it's too early to tell. Right now I do see a short-term pullback to 260, and then we'll continue to play the market from there. Okay, but till next time, TTM Trades, keep an eye on the VIX. As you can see here, it's starting to flatten out again to show that more put to call ratios are coming into the market, and some possible hedge fund managers could be hedging their portfolios for future volatility that is soon to come. All right, again, TTM Trades, I'm out. Discord down below. I hope this helped you in some sort of way, and I hope you learned something. Till next time, I'm out.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.